Welcome everybody to Algebra 2, Unit 13, Trig, and topic number 2, reciprocal functions. I'm going to cover some of this up so it doesn't get too overwhelming too quick. On the first video that was posted Monday, you should have taken a look at the 3 basic trig functions, sine, cosine, and tangent, and their relationship to a right triangle. Theta, which is after each of these, that represents the angle. And that is a variable that only works for angles. You can't have a side measure be theta. It has to be an angle. And it can be either of these two acute angles. The right angle is always marked. And then sine, cosine, and tangent, you just should have gotten from yesterday or Monday's video the relationship between the ratios. Opposite over hypotenuse is sine, adjacent over hypotenuse is cosine, and opposite over adjacent is tangent. Today it's my job to introduce you to the reciprocal functions. You can, since these are fractions, all 3 can be reciprocated, and when they're reciprocated, you get a new function. And those new functions are cosecant, secant, and cotangent. Now, cosecant is what happens when you take the sine function and reciprocate it. So 1 over sine is cosecant, abbreviated CSC, theta, and where sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite. Cosine can be reciprocated, and it gives you secant. Secant abbreviated is SEC, theta, where cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, secant is hypotenuse over adjacent. And then 1 over tangent gives you cotangent. Tangent, opposite over adjacent, cotangent, adjacent over opposite. Remember, when you're lining up these reciprocal functions, one has a cosecant, one does not. Sine. Cosine has a secant does not. And then tangent and cotangent. That always helped me figure out which one was, where the reciprocal functions matched up and what they matched up with. Now, what this helps us do, and as you read or go through this video, I'm also posting the guided notes that go with reciprocal functions. And then you should be able to fill in everything on the guided notes once you've gone through this video. I've gone through each question and just done, a question that's similar to it, not exactly. You would just have to change the numbers. Now, the second thing they're going to ask you to do is find, given one function, they're going to ask you to find the other 5 remaining functions. And here, it says here, find 6 trig functions. But they're going to have to give you 1 so that you know what to start with. And then using that 1, you're going to find the remaining 5. And the first thing you have to do is you always have to have your right triangle. So this right triangle, I'm assuming, because originally these were the 2 sides that were given, the adjacent and the hypotenuse. So in this problem, they would have said if cosine is 12 over 15, find sine, find cosecant, find secant, find tangent, find cotangent. And your first job is to find that missing side. Once you have the 3 sides, you can find anything you want. And that third side you find using the Pythagorean theorem. Now this same triangle is going to show up again as soon as I turn the page. And there it is. Now in this case, they started us with sine theta. So they said sine of theta is 9/15. And then you put 9/15, 9 and 15 in the Pythagorean theorem, find your third side. It's still going to be that same Pythagorean triple, 9, 12, 15. But the sine is going to be 9/15. The cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse, is 12/15. Tangent, opposite over adjacent, is 9/12. And then once you have these 3, sine, cosine, tangent, you reciprocate the sine to get cosecant, 9/15 becomes 15/9. Cosine is 12/15. That becomes 15/12. And tangent 9/12 becomes cotangent 12/9. There is your sine and cosine, which must be proper fractions less than 1 because the hypotenuse, largest side in the triangle, has to be in the denominator. So this is going to be small number over big number all the time. So you cannot get a sine or cosine greater than 1. Likewise, cosecant and secant have to be less than 1 because they have the hypotenuse in the numerator and one of those other two smaller sides in the denominator. So secant and cosecant have to be greater than 1. And tangent and cotangent doesn't matter. One, they can be any number they want. They're kind of crazy. Now, if we change that angle from theta being in the bottom corner to theta being in the top corner, it's just going to change those numbers because now the sine is going to be 12/15 because the opposite side is now 12. The opposite side is not always the side that is vertical or horizontal. The opposite side is the side that is across from the theta. Cosine now is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. And then we just reciprocate those to get cosecant, reciprocate to get secant, reciprocate to get cotangent. And those are your 6 trigonometric functions. Now another thing they're going to ask you to do is draw and label an appropriate right triangle given one function. So they gave us the cosecant. Now I memorized, and when I was in high school, sine, cosine, tangent, they just always came to me. I didn't memorize a lot of these, but I knew that cosecant was the reciprocal of sine. So I knew that if this is 10/8, this has to be 8/10. So now 8/10, I come over, find my theta, opposite over hypotenuse. There's my 8/10, my right triangle, and that's where I got my 6 from. That's going to be, if you subtract the 8 squared over, 10 squared minus 8 squared gives me my third side. And there's my triangle that I drew and labeled it appropriately. Make sure you label the right angle, label the theta, because it's your choice where to put that theta, whether it's here or here, and that will determine where the sides are. And now finally, the very last thing they're going to ask you to do, instead of giving you something like one trig function and asking you to find all the rest of them, they may ask you to just find one specific one. It's a little bit easier. It's less work. Now this one, I didn't give you such a nice triangle. I'm covering this up just for a second, but you can see what the answer is there. Cosine, there's my angle. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And then I use those sides to find the opposite side because I need opposite side in tangent. There's my Pythagorean theorem. Subtract that 5 squared over. 64 minus 25, I believe, is 39. We square root it. And now I'm looking for tangent. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, and there's my angle. Now hopefully that clarified reciprocal functions, or at least introduced them. Feel free to look at the video over again as you fill in the guided notes that I will also post. They will be Unit 13, Day 2, and I hope you enjoyed this first week of new material, and I hope to see you all soon. Bye.